welcome everybody. Welcome to another hair metal revolution. Apparently, yesterday was Elvis's birthday. Uh, my good friend Danny thought it was today, and honestly, I didn't know what day was his birthday. So, by Danny putting that in, I checked. Was Elvis's birthday yesterday. So, happy birthday, Elvis! And it's kind of fitting about having Elvis's birthday yesterday and with this topic. You know, the women who proved rock has no gender, because music in itself, there's music that is acceptable. That what I mean is acceptable by the masses, acceptable by social media, the record companies, whatever. There's a certain kind of music that's more accepted than other music. All throughout history, when you're a rock band, you play rock and roll, you're always fighting against the man. You're always fighting against the system. Unless you're play wimpy music, you're always going to fight against the system. Even Elvis, in the beginning, had a fight for music because, he was one of the first ones that kind of like wore makeup on stage and all that. And they're trying to bring him down. So all through history, when you get to a certain loudness of rock, it always got a battle to fight. Always. And I know I get a lot of shit for this, a lot of crap for this. And we're going to be talking about the women here in a second. But let's I always get some crap for this. I always put like rock not in categories, but because I hate when you put music in categories. What is heavy metal? What is glam metal? What is hair metal? What is hard rock? At the end of the day, it's all rock music to me, rock from above. But there is a level of acceptance. Okay, so I always say, what was more acceptable for the radio station, especially when I grew up in the 80s, when I was a little kid. I always call, and this is no disrespect to Bryan Adams, Bruce Springsteen, John Mellencamp, John Cougar Mellencamp. Get that Cougar name back in there. Fuck the Fighting Against the Studios. I don't care. Huey Lewis, all those bands. Always call them safe rock, right? Those were the rock and roll music that was safe for the radio, safe for the families to get behind. Anything that's like rock, where you consider hard rock, always had a battle, always had a fight against the masses. It's the devil's music, right? It's bad for you. People like, AC/DC, people like AC/DC sold 50 million copies of Back in Black. AC/DC had a fight for their right in the beginning too. All these bands had to. Kiss, everybody had to fight because rock and roll was not accepted for most people. And it's true, sometimes you get lucky and you'll get a diamond album and all that. I mean, Van Halen got lucky, got a diamond album off their debut, but they weren't like everyday household names. To rockers, they were, right? You know what I'm talking about? Unless you have safe music. And again, I'm not putting down Bryan Adams, none of them, but they were safe rock music that you heard on the radio. Dire Straits. No offense. Now think about that. When you're playing rock, Ozzy was never accepted until way later in life. Think about that. If these bands had a fight, what about a woman? Now, I know I'm going to get some comments. What about Tina Turner? What about Janis Joplin? Listen, we're a rock and roll channel. We're like hard rock, more towards the 80s and above. This is no disrespect for a lot of the women that became before some of the women we're going to talk today. So I'm going to get those comments. I know it. I'm going to get them. But if men had a fight, if you're a woman, they had to fight even harder. Women were taken advantage of. Men were taken advantage of, yes. But women were taken advantage of more versus men. They had to fight even worse, right? If Bryan Adams rocks, man. I hear his music cuts like a knife. I love Bryan Adams. I do, but he is a safer type of music that you would have heard on the radio, right? I mean, Def Leppard got popular, but back in the day in the 80s, you're going to hear more Bryan Adams than you were Def Leppard, Poison, AC/DC. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne during the 80s. You just were. And nothing against Bryan Adams. But, you know, and it's not necessarily commercial type, like music in a way, but women had to really, truly fight to get their music out there. Unless you play the safe route, play the safe music, the pop was always huge, R&B, whatever you want to say. That's what the radios love, right? And if as a man have a hard time with rock, I mean, I've heard way too much Bryan Adams in my life being Canadian. Listen, I'm not even, well, I live next to Canada, But don't get me wrong, Bryan Adams is a great artist. See, I don't want nobody to take this out of context, right? I don't want anybody to take it out of context. But Bryan Adams had an easier time to be on the radio versus Kicks, right? Bang Tango, I don't know. Name them all. Name all the band. Cinderella. Those bands had a hard time to get on the radio unless you're Bruce Springsteen, Bryan Adams. They all had the radio. Dire Straits. Nothing against those people. But when you got that pop sound, that's what the radio goes for. That's what the radio loves. So rock music always had a fight. Always. And if you're a woman, there's a reason why, if you look in the 80s of heavy metal, just the 80s, I mean, the only person you really think of is Lita Ford. Maybe Vixen, but, Vixen came after Lita Ford. I'm not talking about like bands like the Bangles, which technically the Bangles had Michelle Steele from the Runaways, and all that. But women had a fight. People are like, what about the Go-Go's? The Go-Go's, everybody thinks Go-Go's sold like 10 million copies and stuff. I love the Go-Go's, but the Go-Go's didn't really sell all that great themselves. I mean, if you look at the Go-Go's album sales, right? The only album that they had that sold over 1 million copies was their debut, Beauty and the Beat. In 1981, sold 2 million copies, right? 2 million copies. And versus a pop band like Janet Jackson and them, that ain't nothing. And then the only other album, then their next album, 1982, Vacation, only sold 500,000 copies. So it wasn't like, the Go-Go sold all this. I mean, we respect them, but it's always going to be a battle. Always. And then you think about Belinda Carlisle, like people are like, well, yeah, but when Belinda Carlisle went solo, her pop, did all this. Well, Belinda Carlisle's solo album, Heaven on Earth, sold just as much, 2 million copies, as Go-Go's. And then she had a second album that did sell 1 million copies, but we're not talking 5-10 million copies, because even though Belinda Carlisle, I guess you could say, went a little bit more mainstream, and then it equaled to 5-10 million sales like Janet Jackson, all those other female artists and all that. There's a lot of great rock and roll artists. Pat Benatar. She did well in the beginning, but she didn't last long because she was too rock. I mean, unless you have to be like a person like Madonna, to really sell that many copies. I always thought Cyndi Lauper was way better. I thought Cyndi Lauper was way better than Madonna. Cyndi Lauper wrote her own song. Cyndi Lauper can sing better live versus Madonna. But Madonna wiped her off the earth with her sales. Let's just be honest. I thought Pat Benatar kicked Madonna's ass, but according to sales, no, Madonna was like the queen. You know, and when you go back, right, where music, in my opinion, where 4 women, to a lot of women tribute through the history of music. Okay, people, don't hit me on. I'm talking about here. Let me just show you images. I think what really, in my own opinion, and why can I not? Oh, there it is. Is I want to go back to the Runaways. These were 5 women. They were girls. I mean, they were like 15 years old, 16 years old. I mean, we all know the famous Joan Jett, you know, Lita Ford, Michelle Steele, and I forgot the other names. I apologize. Right, the Runaways. Right, these weren't your typical kid rock, pop rock, K-pop band. They were raw as garage you could get as a band. Punk rock to rock was never fully accepted in the media. They had a fight for everything. They had a fight for everything they ever got. And then, where is it? I had Joan Jett, Lita Ford. Where is it? I had the sales site up. I don't know. Did I accidentally took it down? Here. Okay. The Runaway album sales. Okay. So, and this might shock, you know, a lot of people like, the Runaways sold well, you know, they sold good. Did they? No, the Runaways did not sell all that great. Here, let's go back. Let me show you guys the Runaways album sales. The very first album with Cherry Bomb, only 75,000 copies. You know, 46,000 copies, 39,000 copies. You know, they only sold. They didn't even sell 100,000 copies. Laugh out loud. Runaways was inspired by a Happy Days character named Leather Estrada, a female rocker who loved fun fact. And what I'm getting at is even though these girls did not sell 100,000 copies, look what they've done. You know, bands like the Go-Go's, you know, they're like, if this girl group could do it, we could do it. Then, you know, you had the girl bands that came out, the Go-Go's, the Bangos, and stuff. And they all, you know, and they all had a fight because they were never taken seriously, right? Let's be honest. They really weren't taken seriously. The Runaways, Joan Jett would tell you, hold on a second. Maybe we should do this. Give me a second here. I want a YouTube studio. You know, sometimes hearing it from me, you know, I get it. Some of you are, you know, like, So, like, here, hold on a second. I'm gonna pop something up for a second. All right, here we go. I'm gonna pop this up, and these are shorts that are on my channel. If you've never been on my channel, I put out 2 shorts a day, and this is short with Joan Jett. And, you know, Lita Ford is not in this, but she's in the fight with her. So let's see here. Whoop. Let's get the volume up. Listen to this.
Rock and riff rock is very, you know, male and very testosterone filled, but girls have testosterone too. Can't stay at home, can't stay at school. I just wanted to form an all-girl band because there was nobody out there. And I figured if I wanted to play in a band, there had to be other girls out there like me who wanted to do the same thing. You know, I'd put us up against any band, and I put Lita Ford up against most any, you know, lead guitar player, and she could really rip up a riff.
Runaways may have riffed with the best of them, but they are often met with abuse from male rock crowds.
I figured we wouldn't have a problem because to me, I thought rock and roll was freedom. I was really wrong about that. People started calling us names, everything you could call a woman, a whore, and a dyke, I really don't understand where the hatred came from. People's
See that now, people. That's what I'm talking about. They had a fight with so much hatred because they weren't playing the normal kind of rock. One of the bands that played rock like a lot of people, but were really good is the band Heart. Heart did a lot of things that they weren't a pure women band, but the Wilson sisters, they were the heart and soul, of course, of Heart. I mean, it was a band, but it was a band mix also with guys. Now Heart sold very, very, very well. Here, let me show you the Heart album sales. I had it here. Here we go. Heart album sales. So Heart was in the beginning was more mainstream. They were like a lot of the other bands in a lot of ways. Now they did sell 5-6 million copies in 85, 87. That's I know when Mott Lung got involved with some of the songs and wrote with them and got to some hits. But Heart, living in Seattle, Heart is beloved in Seattle, in Queen Anne. They love Heart because they had to fight themselves. Heart, everything that Heart, even though they weren't super rah like punk, like Runaways and stuff, they played music that was a little bit more acceptable, but they've earned a lot of things they got, and they sold well. But if you ever listen to Ann Wilson, and they were forced to sing certain songs that she didn't want to. You're like, what? Like when her biggest hit songs, All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You, Ann Wilson did not want to sing that. She hated that song, right? She hated that song like because the song was written for a guy to sing originally. Like she was like, what woman's gonna, all I want to do is make love to you? You know what I mean? I mean, she did not want to do that song. It was a hit for her, but they forced her to sing that song. So even after millions of copies, Heart was still demanded by the studio on what to play and sing. That's what I'm talking about. Even when you think of Heart, you put a Heart in this, like they did it. Yeah, but they didn't get the freedom of some of the other bands. When the 80s and 90s hit, Aerosmith had a lot of freedom. More freedom than most other bands. Heart didn't have that kind of freedom. They still had to play within what the studio and the men want, right? And guys, I'm sorry, that's just a fact. How Do I Get You Alone? Oh man, you want to get me alone? Great song. So I'm gonna pretend you're talking about the song. I'm not gonna pretend that how you want to get me alone, right? You don't want to get me alone. Trust me, I stink. When you think about The Warning, great content. Yeah, there's a lot of great bands, and the reason why. But Eric, you're bringing up the Runaways versus Heart. Yeah, I mean, we saw Heart sold a lot more, but the Runaways, to me, was gutsy for a women group to try to make it in that music world. And then of course it didn't work out for Heart, right? It didn't, plain and simple, it didn't work out. Joan Jett went solo. I mean, she didn't have a choice, right? The Runaways was technically her band. So Lita Ford and Joan Jett didn't go to the pop rock route, right? They didn't go, not like let's be honest. Taylor Swift, she said, country's good, but there's a lot more money in the pop. I'm going to sell my soul and go to the pop music world. Hey, she's a billionaire. I mean, I'm not saying anything wrong, but Taylor Swift took the easy way out. She's going into pop. Joan Jett, Lita Ford didn't take away no easy way out. They stuck with rock. I know some people, well, Lita Ford went more heavy metal. Heavy metal or not, they went rock where rock took a lot to get accepted. And that's a fact. You know, and let's look at some numbers here. You know, how good did, I mean, we already talked about the Runaways never even sold 100 million copies. But they opened the door for a lot of women to say, hey, if they could do it, we could do it. You know what I mean? Sing an all-girls group. And I heard the same thing happen with Heart. But when you see a group with all women, I bet you that encouraged women even more. But let's look at Joan Jett's album sales when she went solo. Of course, she sold a lot more than than the Runaways. Okay, so her first album, 1981, sold 1 million copies. Sold 1 million copies. So, listen, a lot of bands would kill just to sell 500,000 copies, But you can see that even, people think Joan Jett was super huge. She sold all right, but she didn't sell like 5 million or 10 million. Why? Because she didn't get that same push. Not that push. The same backing as a lot of male groups got. We're going to invest in this. We're going to get you way out there. Everything that Joan Jett had to do, she had to fight for herself to get it. Right? There was no social media. There was no texting. They weren't putting commercials out so people can buy her album. Everything that she sold, she fucking deserved because she did that herself. She never had true backing from these music studios. The song I Love Rock and Roll, she originally wanted to do with the Runaways. The studio says no. They said no until she got a solo, and they actually let her do that song. And of course, that song, I Love Rock and Roll, helped break her as a musician. But she had a struggle. And you know what? Joan Jett could easily went the easy way out, went to the pop world because she had the voice. I mean, her voice is fucking fantastic. But true to her soul, she wanted to be a rocker. She stayed as a rocker, where she probably knows she would have sold a lot more if she would have went to the pop. She did not. Right? She did not. Have you ever heard of Wendy and Williams? Their solo album was the heaviest female metal album ever made. Oh, yeah. Wendy Williams. Oh, she's great. Danny, one of my shorts on my channel where Wendy O. Williams did an interview with Motley Crue. She did an interview with Motley Crue. So, yeah, I know who Wendy O. Williams really is. Yeah. We should thank Joan Jett because she could have easily took the easy way out. Going to a music that she's a rocker. That's what she is, right? The only good thing about that movie she made, Light of Day, with Michael J. Fox was, actually that song Light of Day was written by Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen actually wrote the song Light of Day and gave it to Joan Jett and them for the movie and stuff, which is a kick-ass song. Bryan Adams wrote a good song. The only good thing about that movie was a drama. That movie was depressing. You know what I mean? But best part of that movie was the song itself, Light of Day. And I loved how she stayed a rocker. Now, let's look at Lita Ford. Now, here's Lita Ford album sales. Lita Ford, first album, Lita Ford, only sold 1 million copies. So technically, Lita Ford only has one album that sold 1 million copies, And that's it. That's it. And you know what? And it makes sense because if you think about it, I'm not dividing Joan Jett versus Lita Ford. If it was hard for Joan Jett to do rock, Lita Ford was in the realm of harder rock. You want to call it glam, you want to call it hair, you want to call it heavy metal. I don't give a shit. But her music was a little harder than even rock. Think about that. And Lita Ford plays guitar just as good as a lot of guitar players. A lot of people kind of don't even think of her as this great guitar player because she's a woman. I'm just telling you a fact. She's a great guitar player. Joan Jett would even tell you. She would even tell you that Joan Jett is just as good as any man that's out there. You like your rock hard. You like your rock hard. That's cute. I like that. But think about where Lita Ford went into. Trying to break into that as a female artist. That's not done easily at all. Hey, nothing against Michelle Steele with the Bangles. I mean, Bangles was more of a softer rock music, but everybody thinks Bangles sold like 5 million, 10 million copies themselves. They really didn't either, right? Their music was a little bit more borderline of safe rock, which it was. Now, the first album sold almost close 3,500,000 copies, but every album after that, everything, the Bangles only sold 1,006,000. And honestly, I would have thought that Bangles album right there would have sold more because they had that song "Eternal Flame." No, that was Eternal. Hold on a second. Why am I maybe it is Eternal Flame. I get sometimes I get their music mixed up with the Cheap Trick, The Flame. Okay, Cheap Trick's The Flame. I get the Bangles and Cheap Trick Flame song mixed up. But I would have thought that Bangles album would have sold more. But they're a little bit, their rock was a little softer. They weren't pop enough to hit that other mark. But again, going to Joan Jett, I mean, she was in the metal world where that was hard. I mean, the only other a metal band that maybe people would know, but some people even say, "Oh, they're no, not that band. They're too glam, way too glam." That's Vixen, the all-girls rock group. Which Vixen was a good group. They were good, But for some people, they were too soft. It's like I don't care, The Bangles has music. I would like Sling Into the Sun. I can't hear Manic Monday again. Yeah. And you know what? Manic Monday, that song's on everywhere. And when I they only sold like 3,500,000. I thought of all the women groups that weren't fully pop, that album would have sold a diamond, but it did not. I never considered Bangles rock. The only reason I consider a Bangles rock is because at least they had a real band. They had a drummer, guitar player, bass player. They all sing. I forgot her name. Susan, whatever her name is, sings Eternal Flame and Manic Monday. She wasn't the lead singer of the band. They were all singers in the band. They all played instruments. So at least Bangles played their own music. Vixen played their own music. Joan Jett played her own music. Where in the pop world, I'm sorry, I'm not shitting on pop world, but a lot of women in the pop world and men, they walk into the studio, they got 10 writers, and boom, then they have people make the music for you. Suzanne Hoff, thank you so much, Suzanne Hoff. A lot of people think she was a lead singer. She was that was part of the problem. The studios wanted her to be the lead singer, and the other bands wanted to be like more like the Beatles. They all sing, and of course, it caused a breakup. And then Suzanne Hoff tried to make she went solo with the worst pop solo album ever. But what I'm getting at, Joan Jett, right? Joan Jett, Lita Ford, Bangles, Go-Go's. Heart wasn't an all-girls group, but Heart, they all played instruments, right? Where pop music, they go in there, they have a whole team, they got the music. Most of these pop singers don't write their own songs, right? And you want to test me out on any of this, people? You want to test me out? Go look at the Grammy Awards that's going to be nominated for last year. Look at who's all nominated for Best Song of the Year. Look how many writers they have. Look at it. Take my test. Look at it. Go use 1984 of songs that were nominated for Best Song of the Year. One writer, two writers at best. The bands themselves wrote the songs. No offense, but a lot of these pop bands don't write their own songs. People make fun of Milli Vanilli because they lip sing and everything, but let's think about pop music. They're not writing their own songs. And my God, you record yourself. Listen, they can make me sound like a great lead singer out there, right? They can make me sound like it. Here, I'll prove my point. You want to hear me sing? I'm going to give you a 40-second clip of me singing. I can make myself sing good. Here we go. You're going to love this. Everybody, you're going to love this.
I will build a brighter future for everyone.
See that? That was me. Look how good that I sing. See? That's my point. You can take any fucking pop singer, pop them in there and all that. They're doing the same thing as Milli Vanilli than anybody, but they'll sing, oh. But that was really me singing on the album. Yeah, after the mix, they do this and this and this and this and this. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great live singers. But what I'm getting at, rock groups get shit on, and women get shit on more than the men do. And the funny thing is, the music that they shit on, right? Most of them write their own music, have their own band members, musicians. You get my drift? It doesn't matter, Eric. Your AI music is sadly better than a lot of the real bands. Hey, listen, there's nothing funner than watching myself. Listen, I know I need to lose some weight, right? I am not a perfect weight. But I'm looking at that video created looking like me, like, come on. I mean, if we're gonna AI it a little bit, can you make me a little slimmer? You know what I mean? Take off 30 pounds. The Runaways, I hope you guys like that. I was thinking about making that like the intro video to all my live shows, and I'm like, people be like, Oh God, another AI video, another AI song. Listen, I'm just having fun in life, right? I'm not going to cry about what's coming with technology because you know what? Technology comes every single day. Everything with technology, you know. We all get stuck in this world like, oh, this is taking over the world. That's taking over the world. Okay. That took over the world for a while. Something else going to take over the world. Something else going to take over the world. Something else going to take over the world. Take over the world. I don't care. I'm just you know it. I'm at a place in my life. I'm just here to have a good time. That's it. Period. I am here to have a good time. Be honest. I am not, you know, that AI was just a fun needed to be more hyped. I know. I saw that too. I was thinking that like, hey man, I know it was me singing it. I'm working on that. I'm actually working on that, you know. So, guys, that I'm just having fun with AI. All right, don't fucking. I get a lot of shit. Eric, you're supposed to be live. You're real. You created it. We're creating AI songs to see if we can do it and have fun with it. We're having fun. This channel is a community. We have fun. Talk about real topics, right? And right here, we're talking about real topics. Now, I put out a video this morning. Hold on a second. A short this morning about Lita Ford thoughts about grunge, and let me get that ready for you. I want because I like how Lita Ford approached when music was changing for her because she had a struggle, right? I mean, she had a struggle to fight for her place in the music scene. And here comes grunge, and I really appreciate what she said here. So here we go.
I mean, the grunge scene did take over, for quite a long period of time. It took over, record companies. And I mean, there were some big hit records out there. Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains. And it was time to back off and let them have at it and just kind of watch the world, see what happens in the music industry, and see if you still have a niche for what it is that you do. I don't particularly want to change myself because the world is changing. Right. I just need to be Lita, and this is how I originally, came off the Runaways. I just wanted to be Lita.
I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish this video, but I love the one part she said. I just want to be Lita. That is so important. She did not. Some bands did try to create a grunge sound for themselves. Def Leppard did with Slang. They were trying to do a grunge sound. Motley Crue did, And I love when Lita just said, "I'm just going to be Lita. I'm not going to try to recreate my sound to sound like them when it's not. That's not me." So I really appreciated when she said, "I just want to be Lita." I think that was very important. I wanted just to pause it for a second so you guys hear that.
Lita. But after watching the 90s grunge scene, and I love a lot of that stuff, but then rap kicked in and all this other stuff kicked in, and I just thought, I don't really care. There's people out there that still want to hear straight up rock and roll. And this is what I do, and this is what I'm going to do. And that's it. And so I picked up my guitars again and had some new clothes made again and went out there and just, I thought, well, I'm going to do what I know how to do, and that's be Lita. Well,
I love that. I love that. I really love that. Don't get yourself down. I'm just going to go out there and do what I do. At the end of the day, a lot of people blame music studios and all that for switching to grunge and kind of like shitting on all the rock bands and all that. And let's be honest here. Fans of these bands turn their backs too on all these artists. They did. I don't know if some of you in chat did that or not. Some of them came back later on when they thought the music was cool again. But a lot of people turned their backs. And listen, things are sold in public on demand. If fans would have stuck with their bands by the dollar, buying their albums, you force the radio stations to play the music you wanted to hear. You force the record studios. Oh man, they still love this. This stuff is selling off the crack. But no, a lot of fans turn their backs on their bands, going, "Oh, I can't believe I ever listened to them. Oh man, I'm gonna go to Nirvana. Right? I'm gonna follow Kurt Cobain. I'm gonna follow him. If he's depressed, I'm depressed. Come on, Kirk. Come on, everybody. Let's feel that depression. Let's follow him to the goddamn grave." Right? People turn their backs on the music that made them feel good. Listen, I like music. I love it all. Fuck, I live in Seattle, right? I live in the heart of grunge era, right? I do. I live in the heart of grunge. But let's be honest here. Grunge brought a lot of depression into this freaking world. A lot of kids did a lot of bad things themselves because of Nirvana, and then bands like Ozzy got shit on because they're saying the devil's music, people, devil worshiping, they're sacrificing this, and more people hurt themselves because of grunge than the 80s music. People were happier in the 80s because we all realized when we grew up in the 80s, I grew up in the 90s too, that life was shit. We knew life was shit. We all knew life was crap. Life was hard. Music was our outlet. It was a way for us for that 45 minutes of listening to an album, forgetting about the world around us, forgetting about the government wars around the world. It was our way to escape. Going to a concert was a way to escape. And I felt a lot of music in the 90s. We don't want you to have fun anymore. The world sucks, and we want all of you to feel the suckness with us. Let's all feel the suckness. Let's all feel it. Not all bands, but a majority of them wanted you to feel suck, where I want to escape reality for a while, because sometimes escaping a reality, even if it's just listening to just two songs that puts that smile on your face, just for that 4-10 minutes, And if you're sad, right? You're sad. You listen to Every Rose Has a Thorn or Something to Believe In, I Saw Red, there's so many, The Ballad of Jane, Aerosmith, Angel, Ozzy Osbourne, Say Goodbye to Romance. You know what I mean? You listen, you feel sad, you listen to songs, you feel a little better, or it helps you a little better. And then you put on Rock and Roll All Night or something, Nothing But a Good Time, Talk Dirty to Me, some fun stuff. Tesla, Modern Cowboy, Cinderella, Night Song, Shake Me, Gypsy Road. You know what I mean? It was fun. There was a sense of fun that was with that music. It was fun. But the majority of bands in the 90s and above, it got depressive. It was depressing. And it made I wasn't escaping life anymore. Listen to music, and people say, "Yeah, but that's real life. You got to accept." Yes, I know real life is. We live it. We pay taxes. Shit, you guys just saw the music video I put out. Raise on Lies. Raise on Lies. Right? So, that. And I just want to do this show on purpose, because coming from man, I know a lot of people, coming from man, listen, I can never tell you what a woman goes through, because I'm not a woman. I just can't. But they went through a lot more shit than the average man. A lot of men went through shit too. Don't get me wrong, but more women went through way more shit than a man had to. And for these women like Joan Jett and Lita Ford, coming off the Runaways to do this in rock music with their fight, help us to have bands like Hellstorm, The Pretty Reckless, which Taylor Momsen, I mean, I give her every credit in the world. She was a little girl that was in the movie The Grinch Stole Christmas in that Golden Girls, I don't know, whatever that girl show. And she said goodbye to it all and went to a hard edge rock song music. That's a hard thing to give up as an actress world. I mean, she can still do actress stuff, but you know what I mean? Of a lot of stars, when they do music along as being an actress, is pop music. Right? She went to heavy rock. So I give Taylor Momsen all the credit in the world. And Lizzie Hellstorm, I give her credit. I don't think those two would have been here without people like Lita Ford, Joan Jett, Hart, and of course, Janis Joplin, Tina Turner, they all have their place. But again, for the rock world that we're talking about mostly here, Joan Jett and Lita Ford, Michelle Still with the Bangles, I'll give her some love too. I know I haven't been talking about her, but I give these women a lot of love because they fought a lot, right? And it was so cool seeing Joan Jett live again on the stadium tour with knowing about all the men chauvinist they had to fight her. You're on a concert bill with Poison, Motley Crue, Def Leppard. Man, I give her a lot of balls for that, but she's a true rocker, and she knew people wanted to rock, and she was fantastic at the stadium show. I saw her when she came to Seattle on that rock tour. It was fantastic and all that. So beyond that, guys, I want to thank you guys for coming to my channel. Haven't subscribed. I guess I'll be like everybody else. Subscribe because it helps get this video pushed out even further. I just want true people to be here. And again, I'm gonna say this again. I could do pre-recorded shows. I could do pre-recorded, be like a lot of these, take it recorded, cut this, cut that, add this, add that, boom, boom, boom. Do like what studios do, fake the music out. No, I love doing live shows because I love talking to you. I want this to be about us, not me, about us. I love you guys in the chat. I really do. I appreciate Danny for you being here. I sent you a video. I will watch that, Danny. I will watch that. My phone's in the other room, so I will watch that. Artists like Madonna. I want to thank Patty. I want to thank you for being here. See here. Thank you for being. I mean, all you people that are here live. This is why I do it, because I love people. I love talking to you live. Remember, guys, every live show is on Tuesdays and Friday. I don't have the Friday link up yet. I come up with a topic, and we could go anywhere from that topic. I know somebody wrote me in a comment on my last show about Skid Row. Hey, dude, you were everywhere. You got a good topic. You should stick with it. Hey, it's a live show. We go everywhere. That's what a live show is. It's not scripted. We go wherever the conversation takes us to. That's how it works. So beyond that, I appreciate every single one of you. Now, my outro is that music video I showed you guys of me singing. That is my outro. So, it's, I'll work on getting the crowd to go more like this. I'll work on that, and maybe they can slim me down, make me just a little bit more sexier. You know what I mean? So beyond that, I'll see you guys on Tuesday on Hair Metal Revolution, where my famous saying is, we're taking the music back and giving it the respect that it deserves. See you.
We'll build a brighter future for everyone.